Recording is on.
Hello and welcome to the DXgov governance discussion. Today is November the 10th, and let's jump right in with the proposal overview. So first of all, on mainnet, we have one proposal live currently, which is the DX Lisbon Contributor Stipend and Funds, an amendment to the original proposal suggested by Melanie. This proposal is actually live both on mainnet and on XDAI. And it actually increases the amount non-European people can expense from $600 to $800. And it also includes a further $200 for COVID-related testing for flights, etc. So if you already claimed your DX retreat and Lisbon Blockchain Week stipend, it's worth looking out for this proposal. And eventually, if it does pass, you can request some more funds. And if you haven't, maybe just wait for it to pass and do so then. And that's pretty much all we have on mainnet. We did have another proposal which passed this morning, which is actually sending 150 Ether to XDAI, so moving that to DAI, which the multisig actually already did. And now it's just about bridging that. And we'll actually, for the first time, be wrapping this XDAI into wrapped XDAI. We can talk about that as well later on. And then moving on to XDAI, we currently have 4 buybacks live, which are going through. We have all the Swapper Epoch 3 farming campaigns live, and a lot of worker proposals as well, which is also making it quite expensive, or requiring a high amount to stake these days on XDAI. But we have Levotiet, apologies for the pronunciation, proposal live, the second half of his last one and the first one of his new one. Exact same scenario for Nathan as well, with 2 proposals live. We have Skymine Labs with his worker proposal, Madusha, Tammy, Boris Block, and Venki just submitted his as well, even though it's not boosting yet, but he will boost that soon. And then outside of the contributor proposals, we have a couple more proposals. One, of course, is the copy of the one on mainnet, which is the DX Lisbon Contributor Stipend and Funds. And the other one, which is a bit more interesting, perhaps, not that the other isn't interesting, but something more new, I would say, is actually setting some new parameters on the quick wallet scheme. And this also relates back to wrapping the XDAI on our transfer from mainnet to the XDAI base. And the reason for that is that we are currently testing the new quick wallet scheme on XDAI, which is our own built scheme. So I believe most of the schemes we use today are actually, I guess you could say, legacy Alchemy schemes. And this is our own developed scheme, which has different parameters and also allows us a lot more flexibility when defining a scheme. The quick wallet scheme is actually one of the more restricted schemes, as in it can't really do much. It can't install new schemes. It can't access treasury funds. It can't change a lot of the permissions on the schemes. And in fact, the only thing it can really do is disperse funds it holds within the scheme itself. And here's actually the issue which we run into, is that given the inability to send XDAI directly to the quick wallet scheme, we have to wrap it, send it to the treasury, and then we'll be able to fund the quick wallet scheme from the treasury with wrapped XDAI. And I don't know, Ross, if maybe you wanted to say something more about the quick wallet scheme. Ross is very excited and absolutely wants to make sure his worker proposal is the first to go through the quick wallet scheme. So, I'll hand it over to him.
Yeah, the main reason I want to make it go through there is because I stubbornly decided that I was going to wait for it to become available, and I've been waiting for like 3 weeks for my pay, which I need. So that's my motivation. He's been evicted. Yeah, pretty much. If I don't get it, soon I need to start selling Ethereum, or my ENS airdrop, God forbid. Yeah, so the quick wallet scheme. So the reason we're using the wrapped XDAI is kind of just a temporary solution. Never sell ENS. No, I won't. Well, not until it goes up a bit more. The issue is due to like weird legacy stuff. I believe the previous DAO stack schemes are using. So the legacy stuff we have right now on XDAI and mainnet apparently Augusto says it won't be an issue when we've fully moved over to the new schemes, and so there was some work we were going to do to sort of further support the wrapped tokens versus native tokens. But I think since in future we'll be able to send native ETH and on XDAI, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. So for just now, we need to fund it with wrapped XDAI, but it won't be an issue in the relatively close future. But yeah, so the quick wallet scheme, there's actually 2 proposals up right now to set the to sort of fix the parameters. So previously they were on 2 days for a boosted proposal, and I think that's maybe half of what the current XDAI schemes tend to use. And so I think we're coming to sort of an in-between point of 3 days to update the quick wallet scheme too. Obviously it's kind of a bit more secure because it only has access to its own funds, as well as a bunch of more restrictions around like amount of rep it's allowed to mint. And I think that's the only real security. So then Augusto made an initial one, but he added an extra 0 to one of the parameters, so it's getting set to 30 days instead of 3 days, which obviously isn't great. So if you're looking to vote on them, be sure it's the right one. 30, yeah, it would be 30 days for my worker payout, which wouldn't be fantastic. I'd probably have to give up at that point and use the old schemes. Yeah, so there's 2. One of them has in the title "good one" and sort of explains in the first line that the previous one is incorrect. So be sure not to vote on that one. I'm actually not entirely sure. I think we might be able to still get the gen out of it. I had on one of the schemes, it was on the quick wallet scheme. I had a proposal that was incorrect and nobody ended up voting on it. Yeah, it's Paris Gen. And I'm pretty sure I was able to claim it back at the end, even though it technically failed, but because no one voted on it, I think it might still come out the other end. I don't know if it's different on the old schemes, because the scheme registrar, I don't think is a new one. You better behave, Chris. Lots of time. I might be wrong on that. It might be gone for good, but there's a small chance that if no one votes on it, you might be able to claim it, because currently Gen's actually in demand for the first time in history. I think there's not enough to go around. So I think Augusto maybe owes Chris some Gen. Everyone owes Chris Gen, essentially. Yeah, I think that's it on the new schemes. So the new schemes are kind of just these more secure things with their own treasuries and with more limitations around the rep they can mint. I think this one is 1% the rep is set to for the maximum. So we're sending over some of these funds that Dave was just talking about. Don't know if anyone has any questions around the quick wallet scheme.
Well, actually, we're also deploying vesting contracts from the quick wallet scheme, right, Ross?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I tested it briefly with some of my. I think I put like I sent one way of DXD and wrapped XDAI to the quick wallet scheme just so that we could test it without there being actual funds there, and it all went through perfectly. And I have a vesting contract of one way of DXD, which is very nice. In 2 years, I'll get that out. And governance still works.
I guess before you get to that,
Ross, on the gen, yeah.
The other big change, obviously, with the quick wallet scheme, and I think kind of maybe the biggest one is that it'll be using DXD staking. So all of this talk of Gen, this will be the first scheme that is actually using DXD in holographic consensus, and the parameters. And I think the parameters for this are almost more important because we're joking about Gen in the chat here, but like DXD is not a joke, both from people that are going to be staking that and maybe losing that DXD, and then also from the cost to DXDAO for running holographic consensus, because we'd be giving DXD out as a reward to incentivize some of that. So I think in the current parameters, the minimum DAO boost So this is what is needed to stake to get a proposal boosted. Is what it starts at is 0.05 DXD, and then that goes up by, like, the boost threshold constant is 1.2. So it's the number of proposals raised to the 1.2, or sorry, 1.2 raised to the number of proposals times the minimum DAO boost of like 0.05. So, if you had 4 proposals in there, it would be, I think, like 0.14 DXD to stake. And then that would mean, I think, I don't know if this sets a minimum DAO reward. Like, what is the scheme using to incentivize stakers on it? But yeah, I think that's an important thing to be aware of, just with holographic consensus with DXD, because that'll be a much different situation.
Yeah, I think it'll be quite nice, actually. So if we're using this for obviously, we actually have, it's kind of a good stress test, because I think everyone's worker proposals come around about the same time every 2 months. And so in roughly, I guess, a month and a half-ish, these schemes they'll have been working and being tested occasionally by the odds, like, out of sync person's worker proposal. But once they come around, we can kind of actually see how the current parameters are set up in the quick wallet scheme for the DXD holographic consensus part of things. And so if it gets like way too expensive, or we're giving out way too much DXD for each of these proposals, then it's something we should look at. And it's kind of the first test of us kind of actually using these new schemes for anything other than just swapper farming campaigns.
And Augusta, just because I see you on the call, what is I see the minimum DAO boost is 0.05 DXD. What is the amount that is like the reward from DXDAO to incentivize stakers? Is that like half of that, or is that set in this?
That's it, 0.05, because that is what it's automatically staked by the DAO every time the proposal is created. Required scheme.
Okay, and then so that's what's staked by the DAO, and that's what also people need to stake above that threshold to get in the boosted area or boosted lane. Okay.
Exactly, and that then is distributed against between the staker if the proposal get executed successfully, right? If the yes option won, and that is something that I don't know if we want to have it in the future. I've been thinking of maybe not giving the reward, like doing this automatic stake against, but the DAO won't be sending any funds against for it. How can I explain that? To stake the DXD, to show that the DXD is staked against by the DAO automatically, but you won't be receiving any reward. This will be way cheaper for the DAO, right?
But that removes the incentive to boost, right?
That removes the incentive to boost, but you will get the reward if someone else boosted against it. Or maybe we can decrease it. I mean, or maybe we can add something in the future where we can put an automatic downstake of 0.05, but actually the DAO is going to be paying like half of that, right? So I know if we want to make it cheaper in the future, but still use this holographic consensus security, as you need to still stake above the downstake in order for the proposal to be boosted. Yeah, me too. So that's something that we can change in the future. Just answering what Chris said on the channel, I think the DXD minimum stake should be higher than the DXD reward. So that is something that we can consider in the future when we update the DXD voting machine. That it's going to be updated at some point. and maybe this is something that we want to change in the future, it is possible. Actually, no. The minimum stake is equally to the reward, right? So if you require a minimum stake of 1 DXZ, the DAO will be paying 1 DXZ. Which again, maybe you want to require that as a security, right? Okay, it is very expensive to boost this, but we are not going to pay that much. We are just putting the limit. So someone needs to be willing to put this amount of money in order for this proposal to be boosted. But you're not. But the DAO isn't going to pay the entire amount of that stake. Maybe half of it, or I know, something. Yeah, 200 Gen is nothing, but DXZ is precious. Our DXZ is very precious. We have a lot, but it is precious for us. So, and it's actually, maybe it's going to be, how the prices are changing. Chain is kind of like depreciated right now, the price. Well, because that was like kind of dying, or maybe, it's dying. So, now one is going to use it anymore. But DXZ, we are hopefully the price is going to still going, going up, which it means that we want to set like maybe a reward can be in stable coins. So again, something for the future. If we want to set a reward in another token, that's possible. So yeah, something to discuss in the future. Right now, the reward that you get for staking positive on a proposal, and if it gets executed successfully on the positive outcome, you get the down stake is distributed between the stakers. Between the stakers on the positive outcome.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of look at it in that we're kind of distributing obviously we don't want to be giving away DXD, but the people that we're giving it to are kind of people that are actively participating in governance, so it could be worse, right?
Exactly. The incentive should be there, but it will be great if we can manage somehow to require, again, we are going to still give a reward because it is time, it is an effort, right? That it's very consuming to do good governance. So there should be an incentive, but maybe we want to increase the security or the stake required for the proposal to be boosted. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, moving on briefly, we actually don't have any proposals live on Arbitrum, our third base. However, I'm not sure if there's anything else from the GovDev team. If you guys want to give an update about something else, perhaps.
Nothing immediately comes to mind. There's I could demo a few things potentially. We're currently working on the guilds as well. They're not quite ready for demo yet. Geronimo and Medusha are working on that.
Go ahead, Augusto.
Do you have something to show, Augusto?
Yeah. Something that I wanted to share briefly is that since we are going to do another audit on the ERC20 guilds, based on everything that all the guilds implementations that we wrote in the past, more specifically for Omen and how other users requested or challenged even the option of to have a proposal that is going to execute an action and is going to have only positive votes on it. I did some changes on the proposal structure, and the way that is going to work is that a proposal is going to have multiple actions that will be able to vote upon. This means that a proposal will be able to have one action where you have to vote on it, or two actions, right? Like yes or no, or maybe even multiple actions, pretty much like a competition scheme. So I was able to do very few changes in the ERC20 guilds smart contracts, and I think this increased a lot the thing that you can do with the guild, and that will be the final version that we'll be sending for the audit. And after that, We will be rewriting the DXgov implementation. We will rewrite the Omen guild implementation. I don't know if that is still going to happen, but I'm pretty sure Geronimo is going to be happy with this competition scheme structure. So yeah, that's a huge update there, and a lot of refactoring is being done, and we are going to have a final version soon on the smart contract side.
Awesome. You'll need to give a technical demo to the DXgov team when it's ready end of this week, or maybe next week. Does that mean we could do scalar voting with that as well?
Maybe that's something that something that we can do. What I'm planning to do is to open a discussion in our GitHub repository, use GitHub discussions, and communicate as much as I can of what has been done and the plan on the smart contract side. So to communicate with the developers and the designers on what is going to be happening. But yeah, I think this is going to be the first GitHub discussion that we're going to have. And my idea is to have open discussions, more focused on the technical level, but on GitHub with big features that we are going to be including. Again, the guilds is a big feature, and then we are going to have hopefully more. So we are going to open a GitHub discussion for that. Also, we are using sprint retros, which Ross has been leading. Maybe, Ross, you want to talk about the first sprint that you did?
Yeah, sure. So I think, I don't know how familiar non-developers are with like the idea of sprints. It's kind of just an, I guess, framework for like an agile way of working. I won't go into a ton of detail because it's kind of dull. Because of the corner shot. Yeah, it's pretty much it. The idea is to be more agile, right? And so you can change around what you're doing a bit more. We weren't that far off of it before, but this is just a bit more of a structured way. So every week we have these sprints where Mondays are sprint. Corner shot bodega for the US. Yeah. Is that what bodega is? I didn't know that. Yeah, so we have weekly sprints now, so we're starting with planning on the Mondays, and then a retrospective on the Fridays, which is what we're posting in the GitHub discussions area. So just kind of summarizing what we're doing. The aim also is to deliver a working version each week. There might be weeks where we don't do it or we don't update the ENS officially, but the idea is to ship a new product at the end of the week, every single week. And I think last week it went quite well. There's a few things that just takes time to get used to with sprints, and you don't really see the benefit until you can sort of estimate things a bit easier and plan the sprints more efficiently. But I think already this week we've seen quite an improvement. So we had our sprint planning session and we got all the issues planned and sort of walked through and ready. And I think we're actually kind of on track to complete all of them, which I was a bit surprised about. Usually, every time I've done sprints before, it's taken us a long time to get to the stage where we actually finish all of the issues or most of them for the end of the week. Yeah, so I'd say keep an eye out for that. And after a few weeks as well, we might give a more proper update and just highlight sort of how things have been going. And the nice thing is we can kind of use this to track some metrics, and as well as just like having a bit more accountability for the team and more publicly showing what we're doing each week.
Awesome. And moving on, we have another couple of items on the agenda. One of them actually being the ENS airdrop. So DXDAO was actually awarded 46,296.3 ENS tokens, which are currently worth $3.5 million US. And I guess one question that arises is, shall we delegate some votes? What I don't know if anyone has any ideas what we could do. I think delegating on mainnet, I don't know how that would even actually work with the funds in the treasury, but of course they could be moved to the multisig to do some kind of action. Although I believe that if you do transfer the token, the delegation expires. So that's also something to keep in mind. And yeah, I'm not sure if anyone had any thoughts or if we're just parking it.
Yeah, just to echo one more, it's like, I mean, I think on DX Voice yesterday, we were chatting about ways to like kind of keep this narrative going for DXDAO, because there's like a lot of stuff with ENS we do, and there's like an article that we're trying to get out with Sky that is written about the process. And I think also in that, it's like an opportunity for DXDAO to also like assert a more prominent role in the governance, I think, of a public good. And so I don't know how we should think about that. I know also a lot of people even here have probably got an airdrop, and I don't know if they've sold it or are looking to delegate it, but I'm just like wondering, like, how can DXDAO participate in ENS governance, I guess?
I think one of the main ways to do it, and this comes down to like time and effort, and this is not just for ENS DAO, but this is for like lots of different DAOs, and especially in an ecosystem where the members of DXDAO community are like pretty connected to like this tool such as ENS, is actually just for people that are part of the community to go and be active, right? Like this, happened with Bankless a little bit. It's happening with ENS. This is like some of these bigger communities. Like, well, I guess what would be awesome is if like DXDAO community elected a delegate to become like the community said we should get a DXDAO delegate, and then DXDAO and people in DXDAO community delegate their ENS tokens to that person, and that person can go kind of represent DXDAO in discussions and things, and that's like part of their job, and that's part of that takes a lot of effort and participation and stuff. But not sure if DXDAO can actually do the delegation, but we should. If we can't do it yet, we need to figure out how to do it, because that is something we've talked about for like a couple of years now. Like how does DXDAO participate in governance of another ecosystem? And right now we're relying on individual people to do it. But then, yeah, with delegation, it seems a little easier than if the DAO had to vote itself. Like the DAO voting itself, like doing its own proposal to then decide on something. As an example, this is NFT related, but like Nouns DAO is a DAO, and if you have a noun, you get to decide what to do with the noun's treasury, right? And there's on-chain votes that happen on-chain. So there's votes that happen, and then there are DAOs like Shark DAO that own a bunch of nouns. So that's like 7/100ths of the voting power. And so every proposal that happens in the main DAO, the sub DAO replicates the proposal and does a vote, and then that outcome is then communicated into the main vote, right? So that's kind of how like true DAO participation in another DAO would work. The problem would be timing and how long it takes to like do your proposals and stuff in order to reach consensus and then convey that consensus into the larger vote. So I think in the meantime, since that's not timing possible and not technically possible, we need to like reach soft consensus and then figure out how to vote like quickly with the consensus of the community around the stake that DXDAO has. Maybe this is part of GovDev, like where you have a separate, quicker, vote that can act and come to decision, and then in time to then communicate that decision to a greater DAO that is being participated in.
Yeah, it's a good use case for the quick wallet schemes. We could in this case like make a scheme just for a specific type of thing, give it parameters to execute within a certain time, and then not have the ability to call the main treasury, as well as not being able to mint rep, and not giving it any funds to play with.
Yeah, I think we should definitely be exploring that. I think it's like kind of that DAO to DAO interaction. But I wonder, yeah, we should maybe the possibility to delegate if we at least pick someone. I think there's like the guy from Rotkey, Lefteris. There's also the Neiman, who is done a lot of ENS, IPFS stuff. So it might be interesting if like the DAO actually like picks someone to delegate. Went through that process. They kind of came to the forum or something, and we talked about things. But yeah, maybe something for the ENS.
Yeah, I like the idea of delegation if we can do that, right? Because it's a lot of work to keep up with things that are happening. Yeah. Guess we got to explore technically what that means and how that would work.
I would hope that they like didn't send. I mean, someone said that if you transfer it, you'd remove the ability to delegate, but it would be not that great if they send us the ENS and then like we can't use it for governance.
So we now have two scenarios with work token that's held in DXDAO on mainnet, and now we have ENS token that's held in DXDAO on mainnet. And we like that it's held in DXDAO on mainnet, but then we can't do anything with it, right? So would we be happier with putting that into a multi-sig that is watched by DXDAO, and then we could stake the work token and actually earn more work token in the system, which is on Polygon. And then with ENS, we would put it into a mainnet multi-sig, and then we would use the multi-sig to then easily delegate it to a person. But in those scenarios, the tokens then become held in, two different multi-sigs that are part of the DXDAO ecosystem, but it's not sitting in the treasury anymore. Is that something that's the immediate way to do it? And right now we're missing on doing anything, because if the tokens sit in mainnet DAO treasury, we can't do anything with them. Do we want to sacrifice that, take that risk in order to put these tokens to work, basically?
I think within like certain limits, that might be the way to go in the short term. But I think it sort of highlights that like there's maybe some missing infrastructure that would allow us to actually interact with things in a proper way, or even delegate, right? Like maybe it'd be great to have, kind of the equivalent of a quick wallet scheme, but it could even be a smaller group that like has the ability to do the voting or whatever on ENS with the ENS tokens or with the work, et cetera. But they don't have the ability to take the funds, right? So that the funds are safe, like still like owned by DXDAO, completely controlled, but certain powers or responsibilities could be actually like given to, whether it's a guild or like even just a couple people in some cases. Like I think like that functionality, I think, is what I would imagine us wanting. I don't know what we'd have to do exactly technically to make it happen. And with some of this stuff, I don't even know, like, you need signed messages for some of these things now, like with ENS and stuff. And can you even do that with a multi-sig? I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess it's also something to explore if it's even possible technically, right? And then I guess if no one else has anything to say about this, moving on, another point on our agenda was actually Gnosis improvement proposal number 16. So as most of you are probably aware, the majority of our activity, I would say is fair to say, happens on XDAI with worker proposals and buybacks, etc., mostly being done on XDAI, and which is also quite obvious if you look at the past 2 months of governance discussion agenda, most of the proposals are always on XDAI, right? And the Gnosis improvement proposal number 16 is actually a proposal to merge XDAI and Gnosis together and rename it to Gnosis Chain, which is obviously one of the lesser important features of this. But they would also be swapping stake tokens to Gnosis tokens. And on the other side, it would also mean that Gnosis is putting some capital behind XDAI. So in terms of scaling as a layer 2 for Ethereum, a bit more robust technical roadmap, and as well as some integration with some larger DeFi Web3 companies, for example, Infura or Alchemy, none of which currently support XDAI. In fact, I think the only archive node available on XDAI is actually the one provided by Block Scout. And well, I guess it's important to DXDAO in that we obviously have a large amount of our activity taking place on XDAI. And in a minor part, we also hold a little bit of stake on our XDAI treasury, which is around 7,800, and which has been dropping in value since this improvement proposal has been posted, as a number of people are not so happy with it in the forum and Discord. So I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to read through it. I'll also post a link here in the chat. But if this does move forward, from what I understand, the only thing we would really have to do is redeem our stake for Gnosis tokens, which is at a rate of 0.32, I believe, something along those lines. And yeah, not sure if anyone has any comments or thoughts about the matter.
Yeah, I was just interested because I guess we had talked about this like on Monday, and there was kind of a pretty widespread, this is good news for DXDAO and all of that. And then there was some negativity in the forum. And I guess like we know, like no one is taking a stance on this, but there could be a world where like DXDAO is like an active supporter of the merger, or differently, like us individually are like supporting it, maybe even going into the forum. So Sky, I'm mostly kind of directed at Sky. I wasn't sure if you thought that like if there's any benefit for DXDAO to have like a role, or individuals in DXDAO to have a role in like guiding or helping or supporting this merger.
Yeah, there's the same conversations being had with like many projects that have been using XDAI as like a base. It's a little unique and tricky because DXDAO has been using XDAI as a temporary solution, with that always in mind that it's temporary, and then eventually there's going to be better solutions that DXDAO could live on their, scalable and layer, probably real layer 2 and things like that. And so most people have always thought of XDAI as a temporary solution. That now with this, if this whole thing happens, it becomes a stronger, more well-positioned chain, but yet that chain is still not Ethereum mainnet chain, right? And so it kind of just becomes, it's not like you don't need to commit to saying this is going to be our answer forever, but this could still be our answer for now. It's just in a stronger position, and eventually we still think that the end goal will be to live on, real layer 2 on mainnet Ethereum. But so that lots of people are asking questions, and you see some people in the forums like, is this a good deal? Does this make sense? Is this a good brand? Is, asking these questions. And so I don't, like, at this point, since we rely on XDAI as it is, like if we continue to do that, we like if it's in a stronger position, we can still leverage it and use it for what we need. but probably make it very clear that this is not like what our end goal, like in the long run, is. So that's happening across the space, I think, and it's confusing some people because it took something that was like, here, clearly a temporary solution that like works for what you need today with certain amounts of money, and then it puts it into a category of, actually you could put a lot more money on this. It's a lot more scalable. It's a lot more decentralized, but then it's like kind of a competitor to like mainnet Ethereum rather than just a temporary solution. And so I don't know if there's an answer for this. That's why it'd be really interesting to follow the discussions that happen between the community and the two and both sides of the communities, and then outsiders as well, because it's not clear, like, is this like good in the long run or not? And I don't know if I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if people have opinions on that, but it's a unique situation for sure. I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry.
No, I think it's just worth following. Just kind of interested to see the community response and how it gets pushed through, because I think it will get pushed through. But the polls are not pointing that direction now.
Mm-hmm.
It will also make transactions more expensive, moving from a fraction to a cent to 1 cent. But I believe that's still nothing compared to mainnet, of course.
Yeah, some would say that that's kind of necessary, because part of the issue with like Polygon, or it did happen also on XDAI too, is when you can do it for like basically zero, like 0.001 cent, it's very easy to spam, right? And so this is like part of blockchain, is like there has to be some cost to doing a transaction, and if 1 cent is what people get comfortable with to use like Web3, then that's probably okay. At this point, we'd be happy with 1 cent to do transactions, right? We don't need it at like 1/100th of a cent or a 1,000th of a cent when you're comparing things to like mainnet. But if that makes the network more sustainable and safer and less spam attackable, I think a recommended higher fee makes sense, right? So.
Absolutely. It was also interesting, they're also activating EIP 1559, right, on XDAI, which means that DAI will actually get burned while it's backed by DAI on mainnet, which is actually not burned, right? So if I understood correctly, they actually want to accumulate this DAI instead of burning it to then fund other projects, etc.
Yeah, so they'll burn on XDAI, and then they'll have this extra money that accumulates on mainnet, and
Exactly.
theoretically, like the DAO, or the community should decide what to do with it. That's also that's already happening. Well, that need is already happening, so funds bridged like from mainnet onto XDAI, the funds in the bridge on mainnet, which historically just sat there for a very, very long time and did nothing, those are actually being put to work and earning interest, which, okay, there's a risk there, but that's a very like unique new thing. And there's a belief that any bridges, basically, and bridges are becoming obviously more and more popular, like bridges that are not putting their capital to work will just get left in the dust. So more and more you're going to see like Andre from Yearn, they have, I forget what the bridge is called, but they have like a multi-chain bridge and stuff. I think that they will start to copy what XDAI bridge is doing, and eventually all bridges will actually start to put the capital in the bridges to work. And then that generated money will be used. And a couple ideas for XDAI were like the bridge might be free to use. Like right now, when you bridge between mainnet and XDAI, you pay like decent fees. They might like use this generated money to like reimburse your bridge fees, right? And so then all of a sudden you have a bridge between mainnet and XDAI that like is instant and actually is free to use. Like that's a huge like win for something like compared to like bridges to Polygon or something.
Yeah, there's obvious incentives to do this, right? But it's also when you start to think about what that means structurally, right? The bridges are then almost acting a bit like banks, right? Like, or you start to get some interesting leverage in the system, additional leverage, right? So,
yeah, leverage and risk, like,
yeah,
because if the money is all being put into Compound, which I think that's where it is, I think it, or maybe it's ADAI, like the Aave. If something happens to, yeah, if something happens to ADAI to Aave, there is a decent. I mean, that's a sizable risk that like the money that's backing the money on the bridges could be compromised. So I agree, but this is going to happen. Like leverage just goes into systems. And the cool thing is, unlike banks, and obviously everyone here knows this, like banks do this and you don't know what they do though. Like it's a black box. And you will see when you choose a bridge, not only will you choose which bridge you want, you'll know the security properties of that bridge, and then you'll know what they're doing with that money, and you will have to make a decision and like score. Do you want to use this bridge, or do you want to use another bridge, or do you want to, use the safe bridge where the money is not being put to work or something? So it will just give more decision points basically. But this will be like scoring, DeFi scores like DeFi projects. You will have bridge scores because bridges will probably start to lose money and people will attack bridges. And so bridge safety is something that like we should always be thinking about. Yeah.
You could have like a highly leveraged bridge that is like paying its users some kind of interest rate, right? Like
totally.
But yeah, kind of crazy.
Awesome. Well, one last item on the agenda, and it's not that urgent or important, so if you do have to drop off, feel free to do so, was actually moving funds to Arbitrum now that we have the multi-chain, multi-signature wallet, and as well some contributors, for example, Venki, who's been submitting all the farming campaign stuff on Arbitrum, and other people, of course, as well, who voted and submitted proposals there, are also asking about Arbitrum gas refunds, right? Which I guess we could also pay out on mainnet, but which doesn't really make sense given the costs. And I guess we also want to start building a base on Arbitrum, right? So just thoughts about moving funds to Arbitrum. I know we already have a Signal proposal which passed, authorizing up to 2 million, I believe. So it's really just moving forward and going ahead and testing the multi-chain, multi-signature wallet. Very difficult to say, etc., which we are also actually doing today on XDAI. So yeah, if anyone has any comments, otherwise,
I guess we should burn rep first, right? Get rid of the whales before we have real funds.
Yeah. So that should probably happen before we send funds over. Yeah.
Oh, and one other, governance related, one other very important thing, which I think we ran into issues, and we need to, even if it costs some money, we need to make sure people's like rep is correct on all three chains. Like we need people to like that have earned rep on XDAI worker stuff to like claim it on mainnet, so they have it, topped up on mainnet. And then we also need to like get it properly on Arbitrum, because I think there are people that have a decent amount of rep that should also have it on Arbitrum and don't have it for some reason, because of the snapshot that was taken at some point in the past or something.
I think thanks to the deployment, I don't know what adjective to use, but the mess up, I think the snapshot has actually been updated to be much more recent. But anyway, yeah, I still agree with your point here.
I know there's at least a couple people that like say they have rep on XDAI, and they say they had no rep on Arbitrum, which is
well, right now there are only whales on XDAI, right, Ross and John?
On Arbitrum.
On
Yeah,
Arbitrum,
Arbitrum,
there's
yeah,
a
yeah.
couple. There's everybody should have the mainnet rep. So this might be where the issue is, right? It's guys like
Yeah.
people might have XDAI rep, but they haven't synced it recently on mainnet, and so then they wouldn't have it yet on Arbitrum. But yeah, like yeah, hopefully the gas costs and everything. Obviously, there's security concerns to doing the batching. So like, yeah, I agree though, Sky. We need to like
Yeah.
get
So
on that stuff.
even without batching, and the important thing is, get your XDAI, which is like where you've earned most of your rep, get that onto mainnet, and then once you have that on mainnet, then you can request your proper amount on Arbitrum, I believe.
I don't really see an issue either with like as long as it's clearly there on XDAI and you know it can be claimed on mainnet. Like, there shouldn't be an issue. I don't think with claiming that on Arbitrum even before doing the mainnet one, if that's like more efficient
I
from
agree,
a cost
yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, I was going to ask if it makes sense when we're burning the whales rep if we just burn it down to the amount that they have on XDAI to save some stuff there.
Just to take it back to the fund transfer, because I think that's what we're trying to do is like how do we get to that point? I think we need to do the testing, Sky, because we have done at the bridging. I think there is ETH to bridge in that, and so maybe we could do that, and then I do think it's very important to get like the syncing there. I think if we burn the rep whales amount, that even if it's not like the perfect distribution now, it should be at least pretty good for like a base level of governance that we can run things on, and we can like work on getting it synced up as we go. But I don't know if it's going to like prevent us from starting to use it as like a functioning base.
Yeah, and I think that we start burning, and then we should do like a round of we should prove that it's working well, like with some proposals, right? As we go, we've already done that with
The other
like
thing-
boosted proposals and stuff.
Yeah. The other thing is that we are clearing the queue a little bit more, not only because like Venki specifically, but a lot of people have been doing so many proposals on this that they're familiar with it. And then we did the most recent epochs were longer for the big pairs, so there shouldn't be as many proposals that we have to get through, and that was maybe one of the concern of relying on holographic consensus was how quickly the threshold could increase with a lot of proposals, but there should actually be less proposals going forward because we batch them up into longer epochs.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
Also, just worker proposal rep should be synced, right? Because like I have a ton more rep on XDAI just through submitting daily proposals, etc. Right? But so just coming back to what Ross said, to burn it down to the amount we have on XDAI, it's actually a bit more complicated because I would have to calculate how much I actually got through worker proposals and how many I got from proposal rewards, right? But yeah.
Yeah, I was going to suggest some way of working that out, but there's not really a simple way.
I mean, we can just call the logs on the rep contract actually and see issued rep, and then if it's like 100, you delete it, right? Because for the proposals, it's always like 100 or 200, while for worker proposals, typically in the 1,000 amount, right? So you could just delete everything below 300 or whatever.
Yeah, that would work. We could even have a display of that. And if this is something going forward, we're going to have quite a lot of, like if we're deciding to not sync reward rep and make that a separate thing, it could even make sense to have that in the DXvote UI as like a breakdown of what your rep's actually made up of.
Awesome. And I know we're slightly over the time, but if no one else has anything to say, have a great Wednesday evening or Wednesday day, wherever you're based. And thank you very much for joining.
Thanks, Steve. See you, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Thanks, Dave.